Hey, what's up everybody? It's about that time of the season where all of my definitive PvP guides come out for all the specs and classes that I play. So look back on this channel and see if a guide comes out for a spec that you want to know more about. Of course, we're going to start with Unholy, and we're actually just going to dive right into it. So talents is where we're starting. I'm still doing the class fantasy naming, and you can see the necromancer build is no more. That is because they didn't end up buffing those talents for PvE like I thought they would. They kind of just let them stay bad, which is a bit of a shame, but we still have two very potent builds that we will be running this season. Plague Doctor is disease oriented. I'm sure you know that. Woundspike is clawing shadows oriented, and the disease package got nerfed, unfortunately. 15% all your diseases and 15% to coil. So I'm sure a lot of people will have the question, you know, is that build even still playable? Well, of course it is, or I wouldn't be giving it to you. All that did actually is just bring the Clawing Shadows and Plaguebringer talent closer together, because before the diseases was just so much better. So now they are close, and either one, you could pretty much say it's a toss-up which one you want to run. So that's why I'm going to give you both builds. Yeah, so let's dive into it with the Plague Doctor build. That's disease focused, and if you watch my PvP starter guide, you know that the entire top of the tree is pretty much locked in, and the bottom of the tree is actually locked in. The commander line is just terrible. It's pet focused, and pet focused is just bad in PvP because they get rooted or pseudo CC'd or kited or LOS'd, and it's really just undertuned anyway for a PvP environment. It's just too all-in focused, but then the all-in doesn't do anything because they just get peeled and kited and all that stuff. So it's just terrible. So you go down this bottom left side, which gives you a lot of disease modifiers and damage modifiers. Morbidity is just overall damage. Death Rod is overall shadow damage. Unholy Assault is overall damage again. Festermite is strength, which is overall damage. I mean, you can see how this would be extremely valuable for a class that just uses damage. And finally, you have the thing that brings it all together. You're going to run this in every build. Raise a bomb. It replaces Army of the Dead, gives it a 1.5 minute cooldown. He applies diseases AoE. He pulls out stealthies. He gets you combat. He applies wounds, which are great because wounds are super buffed in PvP and also work with necrotic wounds. So you want as much wound generation as you can possibly get. And then also, he is on a 1.5 minute cooldown, which has immense synergy with the Rider talent Apocalypse Now, which summons all 4 horsemen, which do a ton of damage and give you a huge wall. So this entire Lich King army effectively comes out when you press Raise a Bomb, and it's on such a short cooldown that it really gives you win conditions all the time. So Raise a Bomb, completely non-negotiable. So the only thing that changes between the two builds, honestly, well, is of course this choice node. Plaguebringer for diseases and Clawing for the wound spike. The other thing that I switch around is Defile. Defile is actually really good. It has a ton of opportunity to do damage on a point, like in Silver Shard Mines. If you're playing Battleground Blitz, you know, Silver Shard Mines with the carts, Deep Hall Ravine with the carts, or Eots in the flag in the middle, or just on a capture node. Defile can start bringing out a lot of damage, and with the Rotten Wither PvP talent, it also has a lot of healing absorption as well if you get huge uptime with it. So that's cool. So right now with the Plague Doctor build, you have Plaguebringer and Defile. The whole middle avoids the Magus of the Dead talents because they're just completely undertuned. They don't do anything, all of them, unfortunately. So hopefully they do some tuning for that in PvE so we can actually run them. Gives you disease mods here and here and here. You know, I run Ghoulish Frenzy always because it gives you just more damage. I just pretty much choose every damage mod possible because if you've played Unholy this season, you know damage is not something you lack. You kind of ooze it at all times, which means any damage mod that you can find, and I picked them all right here for you, is going to be good. There's one thing that I change out. If I really don't think I'll get any Defile value at all, I do this. Unholy Pact is, say it with me now, raw damage. So every time you press Dark Transform, which is actually a nice source of damage because it adds Unholy Blight to Dark Transform, which means it's a pretty big power window. It will also add out Unholy Pact, which is a ton of cleave. And if you are not getting use out of Defile because you're just not fighting on a lot of points, Unholy Pact can do you the big one. But of course, that means you would drop Rotten Wither for something else. And we'll talk about PvP talents very soon. You're going with the entire Rider line that you always do. Death Charge, Pact of the Apocalypse, after the Horseman's Aid nerf. This is just a huge wall. I end up running Feast of Souls because your death coils do so much damage and you have access to so many of them, but honestly both of these are really good. Fury of the Horseman just makes your horsemen out for longer, and since you get horsemen every 1.5 minutes, you're just extending that whole crazy Lich King army go even longer. So you could literally choose either of these and I don't think you'd notice the difference because you'd be so happy with both of them. You actually can run Sandlane with this build, or Sandlane with this build. And the reason you would ever run it is very, very high cleave situations. So again, if you are playing the Defile and you want to all in on that Defile go, with Rotten Wither, Defile, and Sandlane, that's against melee cleaves in Arena, or huge team fights where the team fight is all that matters in BG Blitz. Now, unfortunately, you lose the mobility, so you have to say, okay, this is Temple. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to fight mid the entire time, and I want to cleave as much as possible. That's effectively or you're playing defense on an FC map. Okay, I'm not chasing a Mystery for Monk around because why would you ever play Sand Lane? Then you need your mobility. I'm just going to plant on my FC and defend him, and I'm going to wipe everybody off of him with these crazy goes. You can do that. You can do that. You can run Sand Lane, Defile, and Rotten Wither. And the cleave is astronomical. You get wounds on everybody, and then you make sure to Defile down, Dark Transformation, which will turn your Scourge Strike into Vampiric Strike, and you just press it every global. Vampiric Strike, Vampiric Strike, Vampiric Strike. You don't stop pressing it. You just keep pressing it over. You prioritize Vampiric Strike over everything. And the damage cleave is so crazy that if you can get everybody to be stacked up, you would also want to switch out Vestigial Shill for A-Bomb Limb, and we'll get to those talents soon. You'd want to pull everybody into that pile and do that nuclear Defile Vampiric Strike go. That's something you can do. So remember, what did we learn? You can switch this out for this, and you would never play Sand Lane with this. You would always play Rider, because that means you're effectively saying, I'm not doing cleave goes. And you'd play Rider for most high mobility situations, high mobility maps, or solo shuffle where you're getting kited a lot. Or you'd swap right back. You'd play the Defile, Rotten Wither combo, and you'd play Sand Lane if it is a melee cleave, or you're playing defense, or you're on Temple and you're just planting yourself in one spot. And that is the Plague Doctor build. So now we're going to cut it for a moment here, Now just take all that in. Take a look. It's going to be linked in the description below. Now we're going on to the woundspike build. So I'm not talking about this as much because we kind of already went through all of this. So what changes? Exactly. Clawing Shadows from Plaguebringer. Okay. And that is a big single target option for range damage that bursts wounds and it fully scales with your mastery. So the more mastery you have, the better with this. And of course, then you're grabbing Rotten Touch, which buffs your Clawing Shadows even further on every sudden doom, which you will be getting a ton of because you have Harbinger of Doom, which gives you even more access to procs. As a result of needing this extra talent, you have to drop either the choice note of Defile or an Unholy Pact. So instead, you are just running all of this stuff pretty much locked in. There's not really a choice. This is Perma Rider, which seems silly because it's like, oh, well, I don't really need the mobility as much because I have this answer to being kited. But Sand Lane and Clawing Shadows don't work super well together because Sand Lane's Vampiric Strike does not inherit the damage buff modifier from Clawing Shadows. I don't know if that's a mistake or not. But effectively what that means is running Clawing Shadows and running Sand Lane, not really that important. You would just play the Plaguebringer, which means you would play the Plague Doctor, right? So this is a Rider build. Its mobility is insanely high, and its reach, its range is insanely high. So this is effectively the, hey, I'm playing against people who can kite. I'm playing a solo shuffle against people who can kite. I'm playing a threes match against a comp that can kite. Or I can need to chase, an FC, or chase people on a BG Blitz map. This is high mobility, high reach, very, very destructive, very hard to kite. So very cool build. Woundspike build again. Everything else is exactly the same. So take a look at the Plague Doctor build first in the timestamp, and then you're changing to Clawing Shadows, Rotten Touch. Okay. Now we'll look at the left side. And we'll go back to the Plaguebringer, or Plague Doctor build for that. So you'll notice that some stuff is going to change around. This is the build that I generally run in BG Blitz. The sustain is still insanely high, and it's very it has a lot of options. It has a lot of ways to do damage, and people are rotting, and rotting people is pretty good in BG Blitz because it allows you to put pressure on so many targets at once. So because this is my BG Blitz build, I switch into Death's Reach. I don't think you need to run Death's Reach in arenas as Unholy, but in BG Blitz, you need to. Especially if you're chasing down Mistweaver monks, you know how crazy their rolls are right now. Thankfully, that's getting nerfed. More on that soon. When my Mistweaver stuff comes out later. But anyway, 10-yard extra range on Death Grip and BG Blitz is huge. So I run that, which means I actually have to drop some really important talents. I can't do this. So what I do if I'm playing arenas is, you saw it, right-click this off because you don't need Sack Pact, right-click Death's Reach because you don't need that extra range. And then you can play Vestigial Shell and get your blood draw and subduing back, and you have these huge walls that are pretty much active all the time for subduing, and a huge wall for blood draw on a proc, which just gives you a ton of extra self-healing as well from extra death strikes. And then Vestigial Shell for your teammates reduces the duration of harmful magic effects against them. This includes CC, so this is very, very good for arena. But otherwise, if I have to go Death's Reach for BG Blitz, and there's also Grip of the Dead, and Vestigial Shell. These are all options for the left side. Everything else is locked in. So you have things like short AMS and big Death Strike healing and big stamina and zone for your team survivability, because there's a lot of casters going around like Dev and Mage and Lock. Asphyxiate, which can be turned into Strang, but generally you run Asphyxiate as Unholy. AoE Blind, double chains, Icy Talents for more Death Coil procs. That's non-negotiable. This entire left side gives you the extra strength and then gives you no magic, which even though it's nerfed in PvP, it's just totally passive. So there's always going to be value in this. Wraithwalk for more mobility. March of Darkness for more mobility. I mean, you're really tough to stop as a DK right now. Super fun. Again, these are all the things you can play around with if you want D&D. If you're doing a big Defile go with Sand Lane, what might you want with that? Grip of the Dead, 90% movement speed slow in your go. Wow, AoE, that's incredible. Okay, right? So you can play around with these things, but all of this other stuff, it's like you can do like a little, all of that is locked in. So BG talents, Sand Lane talent, and then survivability talents. Okay, so now you see all that. That's true with either build. So I don't have to swap to the woundspike build to show you that all over again, because it's true with both of them. The other thing that'll be true with both of them is my overview on PvP talents. So let's get into that. Doomburst did get nerfed. It still does what it used to do, which is burst 2 wounds, but because the PvE version bursts a wound, then it only adds 1 additional wound. That's what they made it, so it's not 3 wounds anymore. But you never needed it to burst 3 wounds. The real problem is that bugged the PvP talent, so it can only do 45% movement speed slow, and that's pretty lame. Because it itself, the Doomburst extra burst, is only 1, because 1 of it comes from the Sudden Doom talent, right? So now this will always only do 45% slow, which makes it a little more expendable, but you still really want those 2 wounds bursted, and the slow is nice to be baked in to just your ranged spender. So they'll probably fix that. Either way, we still run Doomburst. We always run Necrotic Wounds. It's amazing in BG Blitz. It's amazing in Arena. It is a stackable Mortal Strike. It's an AoE Mortal Strike. If you have your big D&D go while you're cleaving with Scourge Strike and bursting wounds on multiple players, Necrotic Wounds is pretty much going to be an auto pick until the talent is completely changed. It also provides a ton of self-healing, so why would you not want that? This is an auto pick. This one is, so auto pick. Doomburst is a little worse, but we don't really have anything to choose to get rid of Doomburst. I mean, you can for exactly BG Blitz, but let's talk about Rotten Wither first, because remember, Rotten Wither plus Defile or never. Okay, so if you're running Defile and you're doing the Defile go, Rotten Wither, you can choose this. If you're not, never choose this. It's just exactly because Defile does a lot of damage right now. That is the only reason Rotten Wither is good. Okay, so here's something crazy. Reanimation. This is actually a BG Blitz-centric thing. It is incredibly powerful to spin because it does AoE damage and an AoE stun. And they kind of, since they're not killable and not really interactable, they will control a point, like Blood Elf Tower on Eye of the Storm, or the yacht's main flag, or pretty much any area you need to deny, like an Arathi base that you're just trying to spin, or even Twin Peaks on defense. It's just an AoE stun with damage, with only a runic power cost, and we have tons of runic power gens still, so pretty crazy actually. You get 2 of these and it does a nice chunk of damage. If you don't have any AoE stuns on defense, it is just really powerful to be able to just zombie stun people off of you. So pretty crazy tech option there. So you could switch that in. And then you have a bunch of other talents. I run Strang on stun heavy comps in Solo Shuffle. So if it's like me in a DH has Fell Eruption and Chaos Nova, and I have Pet Stun and War Stomp. And my healer might even have a stun. So having a Strang to add off of the stun is really wild and really good. But Unholy cannot play Strang as often as Frost because it doesn't have the double AoE stun that Frost has. Okay, so all the other stuff is kind of like Never Pick, Life and Death, has an internal cooldown, otherwise it'd be really good. Spell Warden is actually really nice when you need to prevent CC on your teammates. Bargain I don't particularly like. I've seen some people use it. I've never once used it, and I've still had a good amount of success in the game, so I don't think it's all that mandatory. It just gives you a shorter cooldown on APOC, which is nice, but we have a lot of wound bursting right now, so not really that important. The damage Crypt Fever does is kind of negligible, and it does generate runes, which is nice, and it's a free wound burst, so that's all the reasons why. You just want to get that APOC a little faster. But yeah, so there are your PvP talent options. Right now, I like something like this. You can also run this for those node maps, and then you have this for the Defile goes. All sorts of options, super fun. So there's all of your talent combinations. Gear I talked about in my DK gear guide, but now I have that gear, so let's show it off. I got my weapon from the quest, and you can do this because Ascendance is not that important on the embellishment, because it stacks up slowly over a fight, which is just not really that important in PvP. You'd rather have impact as soon as possible. So I was right about that one, and you can just grab your two-handed weapon from the quest for free. Then I crafted a lot of things. I crafted down my verse much lower than I think most people are going to do. You can see I crafted Haste Mastery, Haste Mastery, Haste Mastery. What you should probably do if you don't want to play it fast and loose and go all in for output stats like I do right now when I attack the PvP dummy, I have 17% verse. Yeah, so obviously I know that's going to be lower than most people are comfortable with, and that's totally fine. I've had success with it, even in BG Blitz, where a lot of people are doing damage to me. I'm 2800 with 3050 MMR right now. But all you have to do to get to something you're more comfortable with, so you're not like gasping, you're like, I can't play that much low verse, it's too scary, right? If you don't want to do that, just craft one of these rings instead of Haste Mastery, do verse, haste. Okay, I'll say that one more time for you. Instead of Haste Mastery, do Versatility and Haste. That will jump your verse up all the way to 23% or so, and that will be something you're much more comfortable with. I did craft the proc damage embellishment, and it does just always add damage to every situation. Unholy is a damage oozer, as I've said a lot of times, and that's good in BG Blitz, that's good in Shuffle, that's good in Arena, that's good everywhere, right? Because it's just free damage on a spec that loves damage. So I have double focused lens embellishments. And as I promised, I am grabbing just the 2 set. And the 2 set pieces are leg and helmet. This is because these are the 2 pieces with the best stats, Haste Mastery and Haste Verse, and they don't have any crit in them. You don't go the 4 set because the 4 set has crit, and it's also nerfed in PvP, as well as nerfed for PvE. So it went down so low value that you would just never run that 4 set. And thus you're only playing 2, allowing you to pick up every other piece to just have your perfect stats. You can see I'm going to have almost exactly no crit. The only reason I have any crit at all is because I wanted a different type of gem for the final thing as part of this gearing section. +2 movement speed per unique Algari gem color. I think this is really good. I'm a BG Blitz main, as you saw from my rating, but I think it's good for anything because with all of those movement speed increases, you saw we have March of Darkness and Death Charge. It's actually pretty crazy how much DK can maneuver around the map, both in BG Blitz and Arena, and it's very difficult. If you can't kite a DK, that's going to be very hard for you. And this last gem really takes the cake, where you get, if you just wear all the different gem colors, you get 10% movement speed pretty much for free, because you're gonna only lose like 140 of a stat, because I had to get that crit one because it's the only one I could find with that color. So I just chose all these different colors. You can see different color, or some other colors, color, yeah, and it gives me 10% movement speed. And that's really nice on a DK. I feel very fluid. I can get anywhere I need to. I've got my Death Charger mobility as well, and I just do a crazy amount of output. So this gearing strategy works for me. Of course, we're running Fallen Crusader. You have some enchants like this leg one. I use stamina, not armor, stamina. Of course, stamina is very good for DK. I put versatility enchants on my rings, but you should get the bigger ones. That helps get back some of the verse that I crafted down from the crafted pieces. And that's everything. That's embellishments, the lens, tier set, that's only 2 set, the movement speed gem, and the weapon from the quest. Okay, so that is effectively everything. For BG Blitz, Unholy's role is oozing damage, like I've said about 70 times, so that means winning team fights by just making it unhealable, cleaving a lot. You can win 1v1s on point, because you have a huge wall from Raise A-Bomb, and your self-healing is really good with AMS, giving you extra healing from the Osmosis talent. And your necrotic wounds will absorb their healing and give that back to you, which is really great. And then you get extra Death Strike healing pretty much all the time from your crazy stam buffs and all the stam that we have, and these stam enchants and stam gems. You get this wall, like I said, from Pact of the Apocalypse. When you press Raise A-Bomb, your single target burst is crazy. Very, very difficult to deal with. So you can win 1v1s. You can play defense with grip and chains for your teammates. You can just ooze damage in team fights, and you can kill FCs by having that same single target damage with a stackable Mortal Strike and multiple long range 40-yard grips. So you can effectively be a jack of all trades, and going after points is also really good, because if you cap them, you can pull out stealthies to win the 1v1 with Raise A-Bomb. Again, you can just literally click him. He'll be right next to you, and you can mount up and run around in circles, and that will pull out any stealthies near you. So even though you can't choose where to put him, he comes out right on top of you. You can still put him without a target, which is so cool, because it allows you to mount up, run around in circles, or Death Charger up, run around in circles, right? With Raise A-Bomb following you, and that will pull people out. In arenas, you do pretty much all the same things you've always done as Unholy. You have a stackable Mortal Strike, which means you want to play with a Warrior, a Demon Hunter, or some Caster, honestly. You can play with Hunter, because they have great CC and stackable Mortal Strike. You could play with Dev, because the single target damage is insane, and you can do Grip Blind, AoE Stun Goes with his Deep Breath. You can play with Assassination Rogue with AoE Mortal Strike and crazy rot damage like you have. I really like Marksman right now, like PhDK or BM. Or Survival, honestly. Honestly, PhDK really feels the best for me, so you want to play with a Mortal Strike, lots of single target damage, good CC chains. Again, stackable Mortal Strike, single target, you got it all. You're very difficult to peel, so if you have kill on a go, you just use Trinket or Lichborn or AMS or IBF or Death Charger or Grip or any of these other tools to stop people from stopping you on what to do. You also have all these movement options that I talked about. So Unholy is a monster right now. I know that's why it's been nerfed now. I made a video about how it was over-nerfed because they didn't nerf Feral or Frostmage or Prez or any of these other things that are not getting touched, and I still believe all that. But unfortunately, I don't code the game, so I have to make do with what we got here, and Unholy is still in a really great spot. It's just a shame that some of those other classes did not get touched, but Unholy is still in a great spot. So finally, we got like some rotational stuff. Effectively, it's the same as it's always been, but I know people would complain if I didn't add it. So Raise A-Bomb, Unholy Assault, Dark Transform, APOC, Defile, Spam Scourge Strike, Coil, Spam Scourge Strike, Coil, Scourge Strike, Coil, blah, blah, blah. And then you only press Festering Strike when you need to have 2 wounds on the target. You kind of want to spend your wounds before generating them, or you might overcap, especially during your raise A-bomb window when he's going to be generating a lot of wounds for you. So let me say that one more time so it's clear. If raise A-bomb is generating wounds and infected claws, that's a talent we should have somewhere. There, perfect. Yeah. You rarely look at this one, but it is extremely potent because it exists. It applies more wounds from your ghoul's attacks, and he attacks faster during Dark Transform as well, so that is just a lot of attack speed from all your haste and from his attack speed. So you're just applying a ton of wounds. So you have to spend all of those wounds before spamming Festering Strike, because if you're just pressing Festering Strike because you're like, oh, that's my generator, and you're not even looking at the screen, you might be at 6 already. 6, 6, 6. You're just capping out. You're not doing anything with those wounds. Instead, you should be casting Scourge Strike and Death Coil procs to spend wounds as fast as possible. Then you see them go down to 1 or 2, you can reapply. But at 3, 4, 5, 6, no chance. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to Death Charger in, raise A-Bomb, Unholy Assault, Dark Transform. Let's get that Defile down. APOC. Now we're spending. Now we're at 1. We have to reapply so we can coil. Spend. Let's take a look at the damage here. Ooh, we like that over 2 milli. You can see we're building up that undeath from Riders again. So powerful. Coil. Spend. Keep that Defile down as well, of course. Probably should have 100% uptime on that. I won't let it drop in this next one. We'll coil. We're still doing over 2 million DPS. This time, I don't let it drop. I immediately Defile again. Reapply my diseases. You can see these diseases have never dropped, and now Defile, perma uptime. Pressing it again. Scourge, coil. Dark Transforms back up. You don't want to hold that. You press it immediately, then you get the 4 stacks for APOC, and you blow them all up right there. That was an APOC burst on all 4 wounds. Coil. Damage is insane. There you go. You can see that Defile. 3rd or 4th dam, but when you double that with Rotten Wither healing absorption, that's a lot of pressure from Defile. That's how that Defile build ends up being so valuable. Put it on a point or in a cleave fight. Should be everything you need to know about Unholy. I really hope this helps. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace.